One thing about traveling and staying at different hotels and Airbnbs that has been really difficult is finding a place with a decent office setup. Not having a dedicated workspace makes it pretty hard to make videos and create content. But you adapt and you make the best out of your situation in order to get things done. Even if that means going to IKEA to buy a chair and picking up a cheap monitor so that you can get your work done. And you learn to not let the discomfort stop you from doing what you need to do. And you move forward and you make it work. Learning to be comfortable in an uncomfortable position is something I learned about when I first started training jiu-jitsu. The thing is, while you do need to learn to get comfortable in uncomfortable positions, you also have to continue to advance and try to get out of those uncomfortable positions to get yourself into a better, more dominant position and eventually submit or subdue your opponent. Now, if I take jiu-jitsu out of the equation, but I apply that same mentality to certain situations that I've been in throughout my life, I think about how so many people get too comfortable in uncomfortable positions and they just make that their reality. Now, if you do that in jiu-jitsu and you get too comfortable in an uncomfortable position, you're eventually going to get submitted or you're going to get exhausted because you're going to be holding someone else's weight and they're just going to have the more dominant position. So since you always want to move into a better spot so that you can eventually have the dominant position, you should apply that same thinking to regular life and to the problems that you're trying to solve or the positions that you're trying to get into. And when so many people, including myself, for a really long time just get comfortable with being uncomfortable and accept that as their reality, it's not good. You always want to be advancing. You always want to be moving to the better position. You want to be the one that's winning, not the one that's losing. I really started thinking about jiu-jitsu because I've been able to start training again. While I've been traveling, I visited a few gyms in Spain. I visited a few gyms in Portugal. I'm actually training consistently and was able to train 3 times this week. So with jiu-jitsu on my mind and with that saying that I remember about being comfortable in an uncomfortable position, I wanted to make this video because I feel like it applies to so many things. And like I mentioned earlier, for a really long time in my life, I was too comfortable being uncomfortable. When that just becomes the norm and you allow that bad position that you get put in or that you put yourself in to become what you accept, you basically accept defeat and eventually you'll die in that position. And I know that I dealt with that a lot when I was just kind of not doing anything with my life when I was younger, and I just went to work, came home, drank some beers, smoked some weed, played some video games, and that was all I did. And I wasn't improving and I wasn't growing as a person. And it's not all about hustling all the time, right? Because of course you need some downtime and you need to be able to enjoy yourself and do things that you like. But at the same time, when you're just a big sloth and all you do is veg around and watch TV or play video games and get fat and basically do nothing that brings you value, you aren't probably living the best life, and that kind of stuff leads to depression and it leads to anxiety and it leads to you being comfortable in an uncomfortable position, and eventually that just becomes your life. That becomes who you are, and you define yourself as that kind of person, and it's not good. As humans, we're meant to create, we're meant to explore, we're meant to push ourselves and try new things and see what we can do. And if we're not doing that, we get dissatisfied and we end up just living a boring, monotonous life, which is one of the reasons why we decided to do this move. My wife and I felt like we were in a rut. We felt like we were in an uncomfortable position and we had just accepted. We wanted to change things up and we wanted to get out of that position. And getting out of that position will eventually lead us into a new, better position. If eventually, when we're in that new, better position and we're feeling uncomfortable again, we're gonna figure out how to not feel uncomfortable. And we're gonna figure out how to deal with it, and we're gonna figure out what the next step is. And I think that that's the big thing that I've been learning over the years. If you do something that gets you in a better spot physically, financially, mentally, and then you kind of feel dissatisfied because you've been doing that thing for so long and you feel like you need something else, it's okay to use those previous things that help you advance as a stepping stone into the next thing that's going to help you advance. And looking for that next thing is what everyone should be doing. I've always changed jobs when I felt I didn't like them anymore. I always tried to make more money because I didn't want to be broke. That's what eventually led me to learning how to code, and then that's what eventually led me to creating a YouTube channel. And now this YouTube channel is my stepping stone to the next thing. It's grown into something that's much bigger, And I have to step back and think like, what's the best route for me to take to see what's the better position that I can get into from this position. I don't know what the next thing is. I want to focus more on YouTube. I want to spend more time with my family. I want to travel and see the world, because these are all things that I really wanted to do. I thought that learning to code would bring me that. In a way, it did, but not because of working a 9 to 5 and just doing that one thing with programming. I moved on to being able to spend the time with my family because of programming and the YouTube channel that I created around it. And now I just want to kind of share my experiences, and I want to be able to continue to motivate people in other areas outside of just programming, because I have been able to overcome a lot of things, and I have been able to improve my life and, do stuff that a lot of people want to do, things that I wanted to do that when I set out to do them, I didn't necessarily think that I could. But eventually, because I continued to, I did. I want people to understand that if you're in an uncomfortable position now, don't accept it. Fight to get in a better position, and eventually get in a dominant position that helps you accomplish what you're trying to do. And then once you do that, go fight the tougher opponent and try to get yourself in those uncomfortable positions and figure out how to move out of them and figure out how to defeat that opponent, and then move up the ranks. And eventually, those early fights that you had to go through that got you out of those bad spots and got you comfortable fighting the things that you were trying to fight and defeat will help you fight and defeat the bigger things later on in your life. While I try to use jiu-jitsu as an analogy for this stuff, if you've never trained martial arts, if you've never competed, if you've never pushed yourself in that sense, it's still something that you can apply. Just the mentality that goes behind that stuff. And I do consider jiu-jitsu being one of the best things I ever started to do, because it showed me that if I did something long enough, no matter how hard it was, I was able to get better at it just by continuing to show up and continuing to give it my all and continuing to learn until I knew what I was doing. And I've applied that in so many other things, and I continue to apply that train of thought into everything I do. Maybe this is a video for you to go check out a jiu-jitsu class, or just think about things in that mindset and just continue to fight, continue to practice, continue to show up every day so that you can also get in a better position later on. And if you are currently in an uncomfortable position and you feel defeated and you feel like you have to accept that and that's just who you are and that's just your life, or that's just how things are gonna be, don't accept it. Keep fighting until you get in a better spot. And then once you're in a better spot, move on to the next fight until you get to where you want to be and until you defeat all your opponents and become the champion. With all that said, I'm going to end this video now. Everyone who's been following along so far, thank you very much. I think I'm about to hit 200,000 subscribers, which is crazy, and I appreciate every single person who's been watching my videos. It's just been a cool experience so far, and I really do want to see how far I can take this, and I really do want to see what's next after this, or what opportunities this thing that I built will eventually bring me. All right, with all that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.